love Sonic the Hedgehog. The game series, obviously. However, if you asked me what my thoughts are on the series a few months back, I probably would have been much more lukewarm than I am now. Don't get me wrong, I've always had a soft spot for the blue blur and its fast-paced gameplay, but I don't think I ever truly appreciated the franchise up until recently. So, what changed? How did I go from simply enjoying the series a lot, to it becoming one of my biggest hyperfixations of the year? I'll go over the timeline of events I've been through with the franchise of this video, and hopefully by the end, you'll be convinced to try more games out too. Let's start at the beginning. Back when I was growing up, I really liked the series and watched a ton of videos around it, but I never really played many of the games. This is for a few reasons. One, I grew up just after Sonic 06 released, so I was in that weird transitional era between that game and before the modern boost style was truly established. And two, I was a Nintendo kid with a Wii, a DS, and an N64, so there realistically weren't a ton of options for me to play any games. To be perfectly honest, I remember growing up playing only a select few Sonic games, the main one being Sonic Colors on the DS. Man, I have so much nostalgia for this crunchy ass low quality version of the Colors intro. I watched it all the time. Fun fact, they actually changed a few parts of this intro to match the wisps that are in this version and are not in the Wii version. How did they have that much attention to detail? Anyways, I played this game a ton and really enjoyed it, but I always knew about the Wii version and wanted to play that for the longest time. However, this game doesn't even compare to the masterpiece I was playing alongside it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, the one, the only, Yeah. To explain what you've been looking at, this is Sonic 1 from the Sega Master System via Wii Virtual Console. Don't ask me why my dad got this version and not literally anything else, but I played it a decent amount and made barely any progress, so yippee. Aside from that, I played a lot of the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games games, specifically the first normal and winter ones. There's this one video of me playing the 100-meter race as Knuckles when I was like 5, and when the race started I just dropped the Wiimote and nunchuck and just ran around doing terribly in the actual race, yet I still popped off as if I won. I was one of those dumb, stupid idiots back then if you couldn't tell. The final game I remember playing before the Wii U came out was Sega Superstars Tennis. This is a crossover game similar to Sonic and All-Stars Racing, but with Mario Tennis instead of Mario Kart. I don't really have any specific memories of this game aside from the fact that I loved Samba de Amigo when I was younger, though I definitely played as him a lot. I mention all of this to make the point of showing that I never really played a true Sonic game up until the Wii U era, unless you want to count Colors DS, as that game is basically Sonic Rush 3. I know a lot about other games thanks to YouTube, but I always wished I could actually play them. Now, let's move over to the dreaded 2010s. First of all, your characters are completely bastardized. Second, Sonic Forces, your level design is god-awful. And finally, you, my friend, waste the potential that's so clearly there! Welcome to the most dreaded era of Sonic fans these days, when Sonic was considered cringe. Thankfully, I didn't join the huge crowd that considered that side of things, and I was still pretty into the series when I was all about the Wii U. So much in fact that I ended up getting the most recent game in the series in 2014, which is technically my first full-on mainline 3D Sonic game. Sonic Lost World. Wahey. I tended to obsess over one specific game for a little while back then, and Sonic Lost World was one of them. I played it a ton, although I never actually ended up beating the game. I did this dumb thing where I'd just randomly delete my data in the game and restart for no real reason. I remember doing it for Mario Kart DS and really regretting it, I don't know why. Anyway, I remember having the odd song stuck in my head from that game, but I did eventually sell my copy when I was in a bit of a selling phase. Don't know why I did, I guess I just thought I'd never play it again. Well, I regret it now as I can't get footage. I also extremely vaguely remember playing a demo of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. Could just be fake memories because I remember watching a single video a ton on the glitches in the game, but still, please tell me if there was a demo. Pretty much the only new game I remember playing back then was Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which I also sold off. God damn it. I played the demo a ton, but I don't remember playing the actual game when I got it for Christmas one year. But yeah, that's really it for brand new Sonic games in that era. However, I did play a number of others thanks to gaining access to them. For the longest time, I wanted a GameCube, as my Wii did not play GameCube games. Eventually, we got another Wii that didn't do shit, so my dad was the real top G, and actually got me a GameCube one year. It came with a whole host of games too, such as Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Power Tennis, Beautiful Joe, and the main topic today, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. It was definitely one of the most played games on my GameCube for a while there, even if I never actually beat it. I remember watching Eggman's speech in my living room at the time. It was really fun. I did eventually sell that version one year, but it's okay, as I now have the Steam one, so we are good. Eventually, I finally got the chance to play Sonic Colors on the Wii, and it became my absolute favourite Sonic game for a long while. I've played through it around 3 times now, and I've loved it on every playthrough. One time, I watched a playthrough on YouTube of Sonic Unleashed and adored it. I desperately wanted to play that game, and I eventually found out there was a Wii version. I picked it up at my local CEX, and it was nothing like what I watched. No hub worlds, completely different level design, and wacky ass motion control gameplay that made me lose interest in playing it fairly quickly. Would you believe me if I sold it? Well hey, at least Snapcube's playthrough of the PS2 version is hilarious.
I'm everywhere, Sonic! I'm everywhere, Sonic! I'm everywhere.
Also, keep in mind that this was my dumb, stupid child opinions. I probably like Unleashed Wii now. I haven't played it and I don't have it, so I don't know. Eventually, I played Generations via Steam and enjoyed that too. I don't really remember many Sonic games I actively played during the Switch era up until Frontiers, so let's talk about that era quickly as well. I played Forces. I liked it at the time. I sold my copy. I also played Mania because who wouldn't? I thought it was really good, but I generally prefer 3D games over 2D, so yeah, I still thought Colors was my favourite in the series. I also played the mobile versions of the original Sonic games, mainly the first one. It was okay. That's literally all I remember, so let's get to the base era.
You tracked the Chaos Emeralds here, right? Let's find out what drew them here.
I love Frontiers. I can totally see why some people wouldn't love it, but you can't deny that it has some great ideas that deserve to be expanded upon. More on that later. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, my favourite Sonic game. From Frontiers onwards, I grew a bigger appreciation for the franchise, and especially its music. I've been listening to music from Frontiers, Colors, Mania, and even Sonic R of all things. However, I wouldn't say I truly appreciated the story of older games at this point, or took them seriously. Partially because of real-time fanlubs, no shade thrown by the way, I love them, but also simply because they're old. This is apparent with my thoughts on Adventure 1 and 2 when I played completely through them for the first time. I didn't really like them that much. I thought the presentation was really awkward and made the story not as serious as it should have been. I thought the gameplay went from okay to insanely infuriating, and I just did not have a good time playing them. Sonic Adventure 1 in particular was especially annoying, to the point where I even talked about it in a previous video of mine. Aside from that, I watched videos on the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it was really charming and funny, especially the playthrough from Snapcube. I really like Snapcube if you couldn't tell. I didn't pick up Origins or Superstars even if I did want to play the latter, and I went into this year not expecting too much of the franchise. Then, out of nowhere, Shadow Generations started to get a whole lot more interesting to me. I suddenly started to listen to more Sonic music again. I started watching more Sonic videos, and before I knew it, I began playing the games again. The first game I tried out in this era was Shadow the Hedgehog, obviously because of Shadow Gens releasing soon. No matter how annoying the game gets, and trust me, it gets annoying, I can't help but feel charmed by how hard they tried to be edgy and cool here. I am obsessed with this game style, and I can't tell whether it's ironic enjoyment or genuine. I played through 3 of the endings, the True Evil, True Neutral, and the True Hero ones, and I'd say that they all have their merits. True Evil was the most ironically enjoyable, Neutral was the most fun in terms of gameplay, and Hero was the best in terms of the actual story that makes sense. The soundtrack is also one of my favourites in Sonic's history, from the lyricized songs like I Am All of Me and All Hail Shadow, to the level themes like Death Ruins and Digital Circuit. Overall, it's a game I absolutely love, but it has to be lower on my Sonic game ranking because of its actual problems, like this line,
"Disgusting black creatures, get out of my sight."
Uh-oh. I finally played the actual, real, genuine Sonic Unleashed. Granted, it was an emulated version, so there were a few visual glitches and crashes here and there. Good thing they didn't detract from my enjoyment. This quickly became a top 3 Sonic game for me, mainly due to how incredible the daytime stages are. This game houses my second favourite collection of boost gameplay stages, right behind one we'll talk about last. They are really brutal and challenging compared to the other games, but man are they so satisfying to S-rank. Cool Edge, Rooftop Run, Skyscraper Scamper, these are just a few of the bangers this game houses. It is so good. I also really enjoyed the Hedgehog stages. I sort of expected to at least like them, but man, they were a lot more fun than I expected. Obviously not nearly as fun as the daytime, but I can totally see what they were going for here, and I never hated going through a stage. It is so damn funny that the Hedgehog battle theme plays every time you even go so far as to touch an enemy, man. And the focus on precise platforming was really solid too. The soundtrack is another really great one as well, with bangers like Windmill Isle Day, Cool Edge Day, and Eggman Land Day, paired with much more chill songs for the night, my favourites being for Windmill Isle and Skyscraper Scamper. The hub worlds are a blast to explore, the atmosphere is incredible, it has the best intro cutscene out of any Sonic game, and the characters and story are fantastic. Sonic in this game is one of the best written Sonics of the entire franchise, and Chip is a great character too alongside Professor Pickle. I have so much more to say about Sonic Unleashed, but I'll have to save it for another time. For now, let's see my new, updated thoughts on Sonic Adventures 1 and 2. I was tweaking so hard when I played these games at first because holy moly are these great. I first replayed Adventure 2 and I could actually take the story seriously. The characters are great, the story of Shadow is incredible, and the Sonic gameplay is a blast. That final boss is so damn good, man. However, whilst I did enjoy the Tails and Knuckles style of gameplay more this playthrough, I can't say I loved it. The mech controls are pretty clunky, and the tracker for the pieces of the Master Emerald is still pretty awful. I still like the game overall a lot more than before, but what really shocked me is my new thoughts on Adventure 1. Sonic's campaign was really damn fun. The controls were great to play around with, and I love how you piece the story together from this one with the other campaigns. Speaking of the other campaigns, they were also really fun and had their own great little stories. Tails had great controls, and I loved his arc of learning to do things his own way without Sonic. Knuckles deciding not to worry about the dark past of his ancestors was interesting, and the gameplay was great too. Amy had a great story of helping out a little Flicky, and the gameplay felt honestly Resident Evil-like when running away from Zero. But the 2 campaigns that surprised me the most were by far Big the Cats and E102 Gammas. Big's campaign was by far the weakest, don't get me wrong, but fishing for Froggy really wasn't that bad. Gamma's campaign shined because of the story. Holy moly, the story of Gamma. I won't go over everything because that would take way too long. Just know that it is genuinely incredible, one of the best stories ever told in Sonic's history. This game managed to make me care about Gamma more than anyone in the entirety of Sonic Forces. It is that good. The final story also goes hard as hell, with a really cool model of Super Sonic. Seriously, why does this model go so hard? And Open Your Heart's a banger. Overall, I loved Adventure 1, to the point where I actually like it more than Adventure 2. I prefer the story of that game more, but the gameplay of Adventure 1 definitely takes the cake for me. Finally, I quickly replayed Mania before You Know What released, and I like it a lot more than I used to, definitely more than Colors at least. One day, I'll definitely get to playing through all of the older 2D Sonics and probably Superstars at some point. I can't really think of anything specific to say about Mania, just that it's really good. So let's finally move on to the main event. My thoughts on Sonic X Shadow Generations. One of the biggest reasons as to why I got more interested in Sonic recently is all because of Sonic X Shadow Generations. I went from not being interested as I already owned the original Sonic Generations, to getting the digital deluxe release of this thing because of how excited I was. Well, was it worth obsessing over the franchise in an attempt to keep me entertained for the release? Let me get into it. From the moment you begin the opening cutscene, you can already tell that the presentation of this game is leagues higher than any other recent title, even Frontiers. The cutscenes look so good here, and are animated in a much more realistic manner. As much as I love Frontiers, I can't deny that the cutscenes, at least in terms of animation, aren't too impressive outside of the supersonic fights, even if it doesn't take me out of the story too much. This game pulls no stops with its cutscenes. They are beautiful and are a joy to watch. The story was also just as good as I hoped it would be. I've always thought that a modern interpretation on Shadow's story would go insanely hard if done right, and we finally have that. The emotions felt by the characters are so real, and I love the way they characterize Maria, Gerald, and Black Doom. Shadow was obviously the star of the show, however, as seeing him come to terms with his past and reconnecting with Maria and Gerald whilst continuing to be the most badass character ever created. There's a reason he is undoubtedly the best character in the Sonic universe. No one comes close to his nuance. I also love how the story works even if you don't know much about the previous games, as I'm sure a lot of people probably don't. This game has one of the best Sonic stories out there, if not the best. I was getting close to tears at multiple points, man. There's also quite a few lore revelations thanks to stuff like Gerald's journal, showing us a whole bunch of new info that could lead to more creative stories with Shadow in the future. I'm not going to spoil anything that hasn't been shown by Sega on their videos yet, so that's all I'll leave you with the story. Up next is the gameplay, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This game has my absolute favourite selection of boost levels out of any Sonic game, with Unleashed at a close second. This game perfectly shows how to expand the boost formula by creating Doom powers that Shadow can use. They don't stop you in your tracks like the wisps from Colors or give you something you should already have at the beginning of the game like Unleashed, although I don't hate the way the game did that. You get powers that help you get better times and are quick and snappy to use. All the powers and chaos control are not easy to master, but once you do, the game becomes so much more satisfying than it already was. The level design is also damn incredible. I never felt like I was holding a button for too long, and the shit that happens within the levels is so damn sick, especially when Black Doom comes to the picture and takes you to Goofy Town. The whole goal of the boost formula is to make you feel like Sonic, and this game manages to make me feel like Shadow, which is even cooler somehow. That's only the half of it though, as they brought back the open zones from Frontiers and made them even better. This game is unfair. There is so much to do here. I spent so much time just fucking around these areas, and it's all worth it to find the collectibles in this game. We'll talk about them later though, as we've got boss fights to talk about, and would you believe it, they're great too. Not as good as Frontier's Supreme Titans, of course. I mean, have you seen the shit they pull off there? But these are great in their own right. The Biohazard just makes me want an Adventure 2 remake, seriously, that would go insanely hard. Neo Metal Sonic was super fun, and What I'm Made Of is one of the best Sonic songs with lyrics I've ever heard. Mephiles was mother-freaking Mephiles, so of course it was damn awesome. And the final boss was easily one of the best final bosses in the series. I have to spoil this, man, they play an All Hail Shadow remix for the final phase. If that doesn't get you to buy this game, I don't know what will. There's even hard versions of each boss, which are not easy to S-rank, let me tell you. Fun fact, this is the first Sonic game I've ever 100%ed. Not including Sonic Generations, of course, we'll get back to that later, but Shadow Generations was so fun, I had to experience every little thing it had to offer. I got all S ranks and all collectibles, and it was so worth it. You get to play a whole host of various songs from previous games in the levels too, so you bet your ass I played the original Shadow the Hedgehog songs. There's so much concept art to look through, there's brief overviews of previous Shadow stories, which, fun fact, the Forces ones are notably shorter than the others, Lamau, and it's all amazing. Also, the level choices kinda slap too. Space Colony Arc was a great starting level, Rail Canyon was a blast even if I never played Heroes, Kingdom Valley was a sight to behold, Sunset Heights was the only good thing to come out of Forces, Chaos Island had some of the best level design and the vibes of the entire game, and the final one made me so damn happy to see. Can you see why I think this is the best Sonic experience out there? Full stop. They took ideas from previous games and expanded upon them whilst giving us a compelling story that left me genuinely emotional, whilst giving us some of the most badass moments of the entire franchise. Nothing holds a candle. My only, and I mean only complaints, are that I wish it were longer, and I wish we got a Shadow the Hedgehog level. That was pretty disappointing. I was expecting to see a Studiopolis or a Final Haunt remix, those would have been cool. Notice how my complaints aren't targeted at what the game did, but what it could have done. That's the mark of something truly special. My god, I've talked about this side of the package for way longer than expected, so let's quickly talk about Sonic Generations. Remember that part? Yeah, honestly, going from an experience as insane to Shadow Generations to one as simple and one-note as Sonic Generations was not the best idea, as I feel a lot more lukewarm to it now. It wasn't bad, not at all, just nothing explicitly made me go, now that is awesome. The story was generic and boring, even if it got rewritten, which I'm not going to get into that whole can of worms. The stages are overall really good, yeah, but not as good as other games like Unleashed and Shadow. And there's so much to do to the point where I wasn't sure if I was actually going to 100% it. But don't worry, I did, and it was still pretty worth it to be fair. I don't really have a lot to say. It was nice getting to play it again, but I don't see how people considered the original to be a top 5 Sonic game, honestly. Especially when Unleashed, Mania, and even Adventure 1 exist. Again, it's still really solid, I must make sure you know this, it's a 7 out of 10 game. I'm just not really passionate about it, especially compared to the others. I'm sorry to end this section off with such a lukewarm moment, so let's finish the video off with a bang. Sonic the Hedgehog has now officially become one of my favourite video game franchises, at least in the top 10. It stands out from the crowd of 3D platformers by actually trying to create heartfelt and interesting stories, whilst also having a goofy and quirky side to them that is extremely welcome most of the time. There's still so much I want to experience from the franchise, so we'll do a quick lightning round before one last announcement. I am working on another Sonic thing which will release soon after this video, that being an AMV. See you guys then. Goodbye. Oh yeah, real quick, I actually played through Sonic and the Secret Rings. It was fine, it was tolerable, it wasn't as bad as people say.